Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from OurSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwayama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, July 16th. We're going to talk about some breakout candidates for Notre Dame in 2026. We're going to talk about a potential team that Notre Dame might be over, or not Notre Dame, but the fans and people like us might be overlooking in the 2026 season. And some other topics. Got some questions from on the message board, not necessarily for the show, but people ask questions on the message board, and I think they're good topics for the show, especially in the off season. So that's going to be the show today. It's going to be very fun. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. As always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ and all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches, from All-Americans to All-Pros and associates to CEOs. You're in great hands with ESQ's custom clothing. Whether you're looking for a perfect fitting suit, a standout sport coat, or a perfect tuxedo for weddings and galas, ESQ's master tailors blend traditional hand stitching in each garment with Italy and England's best fabrics. Check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Quick tournament update. The boys, so last year, if people recall, lost the first game, tough loss. Similar this year. Then they played Visalia, second round, or in the second game. And last year we won in a walk-off. Very exciting. This year, the same thing happened, except flipped. We lost in a walk-off. Jamie, it was 9-8. Very emotional time. It's just one of those things. The boys, they played their butts off. It was 102 degrees. We got the 130 game. It was literally 102 degrees out there. My beautiful boy, he threw 3 good innings, and he did a great job. I'm very proud of him. But tonight, they won yesterday. Tonight, we've got a big game against the defending champions. We think we have a good chance. We think we have a good chance, a fighting chance. So hopefully, we got to win by a certain score. Not too outlandish, but we got to win by a certain score. So good luck to the boys. Jamie, I was looking at 6 thoughts on a Thursday, as I do every day. You wake up on a Thursday, you open up 6 thoughts. It's always on OurSportsDaily.com from Mr. Jamie Uwayama. And I was reading a little bit about the types of offenses that Notre Dame's going to be facing in 2020, 2026. Are we sleeping on SMU? In their football team in 2026, Rhett Lashley, the fighting Rhett Lashleys. I feel like they've got a lot going on, and they've got a 3-year starter at quarterback coming back. So tell me, Jamie, are we not giving enough shine to the SMU football team?
Oh, definitely. I think it's natural that it's going to happen because the Miami game is obviously monopolizing so much. It means so much to people. And they play only a couple weeks after the Miami game. So it's another one of those games. And I think if SMU didn't collapse against Cal last year, and then they make the ACC championship game, they probably win the ACC championship. And then they are probably in the playoff. They probably make the playoff again. So then they make it back-to-back years. People see them in a different way. They've won 31 games the past 3 seasons. It's pretty good. They're been a pretty consistent football team. They jumped into the ACC. I think kind of because of how they got into the ACC, they basically bought their way. They were like, we're going to take less money, we even know that you aren't getting a big piece of the pie, but we're going to jump in anyways because they think that they can compete, and obviously they have enough money people to do a lot of other stuff to help them compete.
Yeah.
And turns out those money people were right. They have a good enough coach. Lashley's done really well there. They've won. They made it to the ACC championship game the previous year. They made the CFP. They've won the most ACC games, conference games, out of any team in the last 2 years. I wouldn't I mean, I don't think that they're projected 30th in FEI. So it's not like, they're a top 10 team, but I do think they're probably going to be closer to a top 20 at
Mm,
the end of it. Um, so they should be at least be getting the same kind of uh, publicity as like BYU in terms of that game. Maybe because it's like, well, they're coming in November to Notre Dame. It's at home. I know Kevin Jennings. He's a 3-year starter, and they're hyping him up pretty good. He's a good quarterback. But he hasn't been a great one. He hasn't been a great one. So maybe that's why they aren't getting the kind of love. They only had one guy drafted last year. It's not like they're, an NFL factory. They have a
mhm,
bunch of ball players, and they've done a pretty good job, like in the portal. They keep most of their key guys just about every year. They just do a really good job with their football team. They are, I would say, because Notre Dame plays a ton of, ACC opponents every year, and there's levels to where each of them at. I think it's probably closer to, they're closer to like where Louisville is, where
mm,
Louisville, I mean, obviously Notre Dame lost to Louisville on the road in 2023. Um, they beat Louisville in a tight game at home. I don't think they're quite the same as Louisville in terms of, I would say like Louisville probably had a little bit more high end talent than them, but they're right around that level, I would say.
I think the third year for Jennings is significant in this because obviously his first year was kind of like a big breakout for him and kind of an introduction to college football at large. And then last year it fell off a little bit, especially in the beginning. And then I think they had some tough losses, like you said. But I it's just kind of one of those things like you don't know how big of a jump he can even make as a third year player. But I mean, we could be 3-4 weeks into the season and it's like, hey man, Louisville's offense or SMU's offense
Yeah.
is like humming, and that's like a big threat. And like I just feel like it's one of those situations where like I feel like every year there's panning, not just on Notre Dame's schedule, but kind of everyone's schedule. Like people pan the schedule and say, it's this, that, and
Win,
the other.
loss, win, win. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that people just kind of put them into tiers, like the BYU, Miami are the tough games, and that is what it is. And I think every year there's always a team that's a little bit better than you expect. And there's always teams that are, the inverse of that, where they're a little bit worse. And I think SMU could be one of those games where we get into like mid-September and we think that's going to be tough. Like that's going to be a very difficult game, especially with again like a third-year quarterback, and not just for him as like a pro, but I think you understand this too. Once you get into a certain level of the sport, and in this one, it's major college football for him. Once you're in your third year, it's kind of like, okay, now I've seen kind of everything, and now I'm ready to just perform. I don't know how good of a pro prospect he'll ever be. I've never actually studied him in that way, but just someone who's seen so many different types of defenses, like major college defenses, like real athletes, like real pro athletes. At some point, it's just like, okay, it's not doesn't stress me out as much anymore. I can just go perform and I can win football games as a quarterback. I just think like that is kind of lurking in a way that it's not that I'm overly concerned about it. It's just like one of those things
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, this might be a little bit more difficult than people are just kind of penciling in right now.
I think you're 100% right. And to me, if we're putting it in actual tiers, I mean, I'd put Miami in their own tier, but then I would put BYU and SMU in the same tier, right? Like those are games like if Miami should be the best team in the ACC this year. They should be. Of course, it doesn't always go down that way, but they should be. SMU is probably the second. They're probably number two.
Yeah.
And there's obviously some other contenders there for who could be second in the conference, but it would just not be surprising if Notre Dame's going to have to play them in November, both those teams in November, and those teams play each other for the ACC championship game. That is definitely on the table, right? I think they're they also bring a lot back, like in general. I would say, like, they're, in terms of returning production, they're 22nd in Bill Connolly's returning production rankings, right? 23rd on offense.
Yeah.
They, and unlike Miami, they have 3 really good offensive linemen coming back that are probably some of the better guys in the ACC. Now, doesn't mean that Notre Dame might not whoop those guys. Maybe they will, right? But I'm just saying there are levels to every opponent that they're playing, and I think they're a higher level than people give them credit for, 100%.
Yeah, and this conversation is a little bit in a vacuum about the SMU team, not necessarily like as a matchup against Notre Dame specifically, because first of all, the game's in November, so it's so
Things
far
can
away.
change,
Yeah,
whatever.
like we have no idea what the two lineups are actually going to look like on that particular day. And obviously playing at night at Notre Dame in November is going to be difficult for any team from Texas.
Coming from
right?
Texas,
Yeah. So that's something to
coordinator
monitor.
changes. They got a couple coordinator changes too. So
Matt McCarthy, just kind of sticking with the ACC a little bit, got some laughs from the ACC Media Day. Jim Phillips said tampering is bad, but said nothing about Miami tampering with Mensa. Also, Cristobal pretending Mensa entered the portal without Miami tampering is that's funny. Was there anything on this, Jamie, that this is kind of like rant potential for you? It's in your wheelhouse. Some things that kind of came up. It is one of those things where it's the part of college football. Like, look, NIL is what it is. The portal is what it is. Like, there are some situations that occur with transfers and everything that is just kind of, and look, like even Notre Dame is guilty of this in some way with Spencer Porath, just like never enters the portal, just leaves Purdue and enrolls at Notre Dame, which is now like you can't do that, right? Like it's not like Notre Dame's hands are completely clean in this.
They're definitely not clean. Let's just be clear.
Yeah. So it is a little bit different from like the quarterback had signed and was, it was pretty transparent what happened here.
Right at the end of the portal, so that they didn't have a chance to kind of get somebody else to say like, well, we know Mensa's and Barcotti's leaving, because that's the other thing is Cooper Barcotti left too, so they lost their best receiver. Caught over 1,000 yards, had over 1,000 yards receiving, and their quarterback who helped them win the ACC last year.
Yeah.
With days, or maybe even a day left in the portal. Like, I think it was right up to the wire there. And basically only because Miami had struck out with other quarterbacks that they tried to get.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they're just like, okay, well, let's just throw all the money at Mensa in there. I don't get mad at this, though. I think it's, I would say how Matt McCarthy said, you can giggle about it. Like, you're like, okay, come on, right? But he can't say anything else. Everybody knows. Everybody in the room knows. No, and that's why no one asks him and grills him about it. Because really, if someone actually grilled him about it, you could grill everyone about it. As much as Duke probably was like, pissed about all the how it went down and the specific timing of it and all that. Well, Duke got some transfers too, and they probably tampered with Mensa the year before when he came from Tulane, and they probably tampered with whoever they got this year, and because that's how it works. That's how it works. It's just like one of these things. Like, it's like how technically there's a dead period in recruiting. They talk during the dead period. COVID, people aren't supposed to take visits. People are taking secret visits during COVID while they're thinking. Like, there's all of that kind of thing, right? So it's one of these things. It's why I do appreciate. I do think the whole thing with Old Miss, getting like you guys in class at Clemson, and they're like, hey, yeah, come on, man, come here. Like, that is like a step over the line that I do think I totally get why Dabo would take issue with it and show like whatever. But notice, I really want to know if Dabo's going to like go off about it during this. I haven't seen if he's spoken yet or whatever.
Well, like he like originally he made huge,
he called a separate press conference.
Yeah, like he made big noise about this. Like, what has anything come of that? Or are we just,
I don't think so. And I mean, did they submit to the NCAA or whatever, the clearinghouse,
like the
or
text
whatever?
messages and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
did they submit all that stuff? Is there anything that's going to come from that? Are they saying that stuff? And I understand the whole thing about the class thing is, to me, yes, it's a step too far, but they got some Dabo, after not taking any transfers, he's gotten transfers the last couple of years. So other teams wanted those transfers too. They didn't tamper. They weren't calling these guys when they were still playing or back channeling them in some way. It's just like Dabo trying to be like, oh, and everything's about NIL now. Like, they weren't like dropping bags illegally to such 5-star for so many years. Like, give me a break, Dabo. You freaking hypocrite. Like, yeah. So it's one of these things. Like, I can't get mad at Cristobal because he's got to say that. I don't even think he should. Well, first of all, I think he shouldn't even say anything. He'd just be like, hey, we're glad we got him on the team. Don't talk about, oh, when he went in the portal. No, don't even mention that, because then it's like everybody knows. But I don't know. There's just a lot there. It's like the same thing with like the coaches, and I ranted about it in Six Thoughts about like these coaches getting like 8, 9, 10, 11-year contracts. Why? Like, it's just like, if they do well, you're going to rip up that contract and give them a bigger raise and do that anyways. If they don't do well, you're stuck with it. And then if you have crazy like billionaires that are ready to just like pay off Jimbo Fisher or do whatever, you're going to be fine at Texas A&M. You're going to be fine at LSU to buy out Brian Kelly, even though he had 5 years and 50 something million left on his contract or whatever it was. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, USC, not that anyone should be crying for USC or Florida State. If they had the money, they would have bought out Norvell and they would have bought out Riley, but they don't have the money. Yeah. So that's why they're just like, well, I guess we'll just like, I mean, Florida State doesn't even have the money to buy a recruiting class. Like, they don't even have that. So they don't have any money. So they're stuck with this guy who's making like 10 million, whatever, 9, 10, whatever million. I don't know how many a year. For 6 more years, they have him. He's 7-17 the last 2 years. Like, that'll get you fired from Vanderbilt. Like, that's just like the kind of thing. Like, at Florida State, he should have had his walking papers long ago. But I totally get why they gave him a contract extension at the time. But the 8-year part of it, you're morons. Like, you're total morons. Because the thing is too is like, so he's going to go to Alabama because they're going to give him an 8-year deal. Like, then you're like, then go, because we'll just have to get somebody else, because that is too much risk or whatever. Like, it's totally different now than it was when people used to say, well, are you going to be there the whole time? Nothing's guaranteed now, because that kid might leave in a year. The transfer portal's opened up. There's only, multiple people transfer 4 schools for some kids. Coaches leave on a whim at any point. Like, how many people thought that Michigan's coach was going to stay at, basketball coach was going to stay, and then all of a sudden he's the coach of the Mavs,
and he's out. Yeah,
and it happens, and that's like, they don't have any choice. They're like, well, I guess we're gonna have to promote somebody from within, because they don't have any other choice in the matter at the time. So there's things that are broken within the system that, like, even if you just had a fix for like the NFL, where you said, well, if you want to try to take our coach, you got to give us a 1st-round pick, or you got to give us this or whatever. Or, hey, you can't just rip up this thing. If this guy wants to demand a traded sit out, well, he's going to get fined whatever, $100,000 a day or whatever. Like, that's the kind of thing that you're going to have to do. And there's none of that in college football. So it's just like a total free for all. But I'm tired of people blaming the players for like, oh man, these players with these agents and stuff like that. How about these coaches with these agents who have been just like Jimbo, getting money to be like a bad analyst on TV and go fishing and getting whatever $10 million a year? BK just basically promoting himself, trying to do his rehabilitation tour while he's getting paid $10 million a year. Like, that's dumb. It's so dumb. Like, just like you can blame Kevin White too for the whole Charlie Weiss 10-year contract. Like, oh my God. Like, you can't get any dumber.
Yeah. I think there's levels to the tampering stuff, by the way. Like, I think because it's like NBA free agency, where there's like free agency opens, but as soon as it opens, like guys are signing deals, right? Like how is that possible? It's only possible because you've talked to them already, right? So there's that piece, right? Like teams always know who they want to target in the portal before the portal opens, right? Like that's the way it works.
Oh yeah.
And that's the world.
They have
And
to.
that it is what it
they
is.
Have to.
I do think it's different when that guys have signed deals and then they go back. Like that doesn't happen. Like in the NBA, if a guy signs a deal, like actually signs a deal,
yeah,
and is like practicing with the team, and then another team can't come in and be like, actually, I want to sign you for this number, and then they leave. Like that doesn't happen, right? And so that's the part where it's like that's crossing the line a little bit. Like that stuff is shady and like that shouldn't happen, right? It doesn't happen in pros. It shouldn't happen in college. Like that is something that should go away. And that's the kind of the shameless part that I think that people are most upset about. It's not tampering per se. It's I've signed a deal. I'm in my econ, 303 class, and I'm receiving text messages from Ole Miss. Like that is, come on, man. Like that should not be happening.
Like the Damon Williams thing with Washington, where he literally resigned, and then 2 days later or whatever it was, it's like, well, gonna throw in some crystal balls for him to LSU. It's like, this guy's not even in the portal yet. What's going on here?
Yeah. That's not
like good. That's so shady.
Yeah, that's got to be out of the sport, in my opinion. Someone mentioned you mentioned BK just a second ago. We had a question on the message board. It's like if he wanted to come on this show. Obviously, he was on the Independent with Samson and Fortuna. They got so much backlash for actually having the interview. I thought that was really weird. I was like, dude, they're a media company. Of course, they're gonna have. If Brian Kelly and his reps contacted me or you or whoever and was like, we want to come on your show, I would 100% have him on and talk to him, because there's questions I would like to ask him. And one of them is like, you just like the comment in the chat was asking about, Notre Dame being in a conference. Like, I want to know now that Brian Kelly is outside of Notre Dame and he was in the SEC with LSU. Like, are people just sour grapes about Notre Dame in a conference? Like, I want to know his point of view on that, like his honest point of view on that. Like, he should be able to give that. I would want to know, like, what he thinks of where Notre Dame is now. Did you even see this coming? Like we mentioned on the last show, like stuff like that. I'm not really interested in kind of rehashing what happened. I'm not, because he's not going to tell the truth about that. I'm more interested in like his analysis of where things are. Like I would 100% talk to him. It's weird that people would get on a media company for talking to that former head coach of Notre Dame. Like to me, that's totally fair. Like I think that's super weird.
It is one of these things that I get it from a fan perspective. It's just like there's so much sour grapes. Everybody's just bitter about
what happened.
I get it. But at the same time, like, if we had him on, first of all, there's so many things I'd like to ask him. I would be, and I hope that people would look at it and be like, we're not like shilling, and we're just like asking him real questions, and not in a totally fair questions. Not like, because I'm not going to name names, but there's other people who would have him on who would just be like, tried a bunch of gotcha stuff. And it'd be like, no, well, then you're not going to have a conversation. And he's not, well, first of all, he'd never want to go on your show, but I'd like to ask him a lot of like real questions, like about like specific things that happened during his time at Notre Dame.
Things like were you on board with Kyle Hamilton playing on offense? Because I honestly have I have some information that maybe he was. And look, I want to know, was that even possible?
I mean, one thing that I've always wanted to ask him is 2011, your recruiting class, you sign Aaron Lynch, you sign Ishak Williams, you sign Stephon Tuitt. I remember there was a lot of just like, wow, this is like incredible what they've just done to sign these defensive linemen. How come they never came close to replicating that ever again?
Yeah.
What was it about it? It was like, well, just those specific guys didn't want the bag, and then the other guys there, they didn't do a good enough job recruiting. Like, I want to hear his answer there. And he'd probably give a BS answer about what it actually was, but I I really would like to know, because there are things there that, like, if you could have changed certain things, and maybe then he brings up, well, we had Eddie Vanderdoos and his grandma died or whatever. Like, he could have, whatever, he could bring up a whole bunch of things. But I want to hear, there's a whole bunch of things that happened during the course of his thing, and also on the field things that, he had a lot of like close losses that could have like put them over the hump in the eyes of a lot of people. I'm like, what would you do differently in these games and this and that? Like, I would want to know his answers. I would really be interested to know. And because to be honest, like, yeah, would he rather be at Notre Dame if they had all the resource they have now? Yeah, obviously he'd rather have that. But it's like one of these things where I would honestly love to sit down with him for 3 hours and talk with him on a bunch of things. Yeah. Not like even on a podcast, but just like actually like pick his brain about a lot of stuff, because if he was honest, I think you get a lot of like really insightful answers about it, but I honestly don't know how honest he would be about it.
Yeah. 2011 Michigan. Will you apologize?
First, at 2011 Michigan, my question is, how dare you?
Yeah, how dare you? 2019 Michigan, explain it, please.
Yeah.
What's your problem? Yeah, no, it's but the chances that I don't feel very good about it. It's not going to happen because I'm not going to seek it out either. And plus, I have some unfortunate. Well, the search function on Twitter now is like broken, But I had some fun with his departure on the Twitter machine in 2021. I didn't work for ISD at the time, so this probably predates that.
I just saw this is a pretty big thing for Notre Dame's schedule. Not that they were going to threaten to beat them, but Kalen Chudzinski, who's the tight end for like probably the best returning player on
Boston College,
he's out for the year.
Yeah,
towards Achilles.
Yeah.
Just saw that. So it's a tough one for
that sucks.
B.O.B.
Yeah, that's not good. You hate to see that. Like, truly, you hate to see that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we say it ironically, and sometimes we don't. That's unfortunate for him. Hopefully, there's a good recovery coming from him. So let's talk about some breakout candidates. That was also a big part of the Six Thoughts on a Thursday today from you. A good point you made is, like, a lot of the time we use fall camp as kind of a gauge for this, and sometimes it doesn't come to fruition like that, or at least not as cleanly as you might think. And so that's, I think, a good point that you made on the Six Thoughts. Who are some guys that you're kind of targeting as some breakout guys, and then we can just kind of go through it, like maybe even some guys that you feel like they're not going to be projected starters going into the opener.
Yeah, well, the way I wrote about it too is that there's kind of like difference between guys who kind of break out, because I think, and I'll get into those guys later, but like Luke Talek was a breakout player. We discussed, briefly in the last podcast, but he was the fourth safety. But for him, it was a breakout, and he really made the most of, like, played just over 200 snaps. He made the most of it, turned himself into an NFL prospect, and now he thrived in his role. Now he's going to make a bigger role, and there's going to be other guys like that, because Notre Dame has so much. They're first in the country in returning production. They have as much talent coming back as anybody. So isn't a ton of open jobs in a lot of ways. So there's not a lot of room for guys to break out in the same way. There's definitely more chances for people to break out on offense than there is defense. And I would say, like, Mylan Graham, we've kind of talked about it. Like, he's a perfect example of somebody who 6 catches in his career, right? Redshirt first year, 6 catches.
He's a breakout on like a national level guy, not like because nationally
Well,
people don't know about Luke Dolich.
Well, yeah, but also too, like, I don't want to get too far ahead of it because it's easy to just be like, well, he's going to be this and that. It's like, you could say, like, it was a massive breakout for Equinemius St. Brown to go from one catch to however many catches that he had, and I think he went from 8 yards to 961. Like, that's huge. Well, I'm looking at a guy like Mylan Graham, 6 catches, could have 60 catches this year. Like, that is on the table. Like, it's possible, right? Like, it's not a sure thing, but it's definitely possible based on kind of like his talent and also how he looked in the spring. Like, he is, if not a starter already, like an established starter, he is going to play a big role. He is going to be one of Notre Dame's top 3 receivers. Feel pretty confident in that based on what we saw in the spring, right? So that to me is a guy who's just like a Fuller or an Equinemius St. Brown, who, like, very little production so far in his career, chance to really kind of like blow up. And I think that's on the table. Then there's, Will Black is an obvious one, right? Because he went from redshirting, played just the garbage time, things like guard. All of a sudden, he's like going to play a premier position for Notre Dame. Going to be a left tackle. Obviously, we know the history of Notre Dame's at the position at Notre Dame and how many guys have become first-round picks. And, obviously most recently Joe Alt. If you're going to move a guy who's a 2-year returning starter there to, inside to bring another guy in, you obviously think very highly of Will Black and what he can do. So that's someone who's like an obvious candidate, who he is someone who probably definitely, like, nationally people don't even know about him. And not like people are talking about O-lineman anyways, but that's someone that as the season goes along, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, Notre Dame's got another one of these guys, right? Like that, I think is a real thing. I think there's a whole bunch of guys just in general that you could say, like, a Gerby Lambert, who went from, like, oh, he had a 1 year as a starter, he was a guard, I would say he was solid, like not great, but he was solid. And well, now he's going to go back to his natural position. He's got that kind of thing. It's a year 3 jump. Like, a lot of guys do that. I think that he's like a prime candidate for that kind of thing. I think James Flanagan, like, I was talking with Mike the other day about how if you go back and watch a Stanford game or the Pitt game, James Flanagan played a lot in those games. Like, he was playing a lot at the end of the season because they were getting ready for him to play more in the playoff. So he's going to play a lot this year. And it's just going to be like, is he going to be a starter? Is he going to be something like, he might be in the Luke Talek category of breakout, or he could be something else. Like, we could see that, right? And then there's obviously like the Leonard Moore, Kyle Hamilton, Michael Mayer, Joe Alt, the freshman guys who are just like Ben Morrison. Like, these guys are so good, can't keep them off the field. Like, how about if you think about Clarence Lewis played the most snaps on the team the year before Ben Morrison came, and then they were like, we got to put Ben Morrison just better than him, and he was, right. Like, he earned that spot, and then he started, right. So I think if you see someone like Rodney Dunham all of a sudden go from, well, okay, he's in the rotation, to all of a sudden, man, he's got to be like one of our main guys on third down, and he's got to be this. And it's like, he might not ever be a starter, but he could make a tremendous impact. Ian Premer, we talked about it, right? Like, yeah, I think he would be someone that I could almost envision as the season goes along, his role kind of like growing and growing. Like, early on, maybe they do like some like gadget, like, hey, we sneak him in there. The other team doesn't really know about him. we run some kind of like flea flicker that they threw to like Eli Reardon last year. He's going to be the guy who gets that this year, because he can just run by people too. So there's all that. There's all of that. So I think like um, there's a whole bunch of guys and obviously freshmen that could do that and jump the line. And it's kind of like yet to be determined. But it just seems like there's too much talent for there not to be a guy like Tay Johnson this year that you're like, well, he's competing there and I think he's going to be pretty good. But oh no, this guy's like elite. Like there's someone that's going to happen for someone. There's just too many guys that have that possibility.
I think we get a ton of questions. Irish one on the board asked about the running back kind of distribution and the way that we think that could shake out. And obviously, like both Aeneas Williams and Nolan James are breakout guys, right? Very easy to,
Yeah.
More than likely, okay, they both get like 150-ish carries or something, 125 split. That's the most likely scenario. I'm kind of monitoring the Jonas Walton situation. There's been buzz about him. I think that he showed enough in the spring against good players that it's like I think there might be something there. And the thing is like there's, in my opinion, there is such a parallel between in terms of like their pecking order. So I remember when Josh Adams, everyone talks about the camp that he had, and he kept breaking off big runs over and over again. But he was the guy, he was kind of overlooked. He had the ACL, but people were super fired up about Dexter Williams. And came in at the same time. People were very excited about him, and he was a 4-star athlete out of Florida, and then it was like Adams over and over again. It's like he keeps doing stuff, and I think that Walton was kind of the same. It's like people looked at him and his track times, but it's like, but he doesn't. His track times don't translate to the football field. We heard that a lot, and people were very excited about Javon Osborne, who hurt his wrist in the spring and didn't get to participate. And then Walton, every time you heard about him, every practice, in the spring game, in the open scrimmage, or in the Jersey scrimmage, like you always heard about him breaking off like explosive runs. And I just kind of like, I have a feeling that he is going to get a lot more work than I think people have kind of penciled in their minds right now. And even maybe the staff, like there is something that he has. If you can run 10-6 or 10-5 or whatever it is, and you're going to run inside as well, you're going to be a good inside runner. I mean, there was a play in the spring game where he got the ball, got hit behind the line of scrimmage, kept his feet going, and he went for like 3 or 4 yards. It's like, yeah, it's a 3-4 yard gain, but he also got hit 2 yards behind line of scrimmage with like no room. He basically was +6 yards when there was no space at all, no hole. The blocking wasn't there. I just think that's meaningful, and when you can do that and you're also a 10-5 guy, like I'm monitoring the Jonas Walton situation as someone that's like, I don't want to say breakout guy, but it's just like he's going to give Notre Dame something that like we're all thinking about. Where's the explosiveness coming from at the running back position? Because no one really thinks of Williams and James like that. He could be the answer to that. What do you think of that, James?
I think it's a possibility, but I also think that, Kedron Young should be someone that is probably talked about in that way too, because he's, obviously depending on his health, but he might be that guy, right? So I think that's something to monitor there too. I'd also say that it was always a thing with Kyren Williams was like, well, how explosive he's going to be. And it's like, how much can he do? He doesn't have he's just not as fast as this guy. He's not as whatever. Right. And Aeneas Williams is kind of the same. And, for a guy that Aeneas Williams sure isn't a burner, like he certainly, there's no way that if you put him in a race with Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love, like he's not coming close to winning that race. And yet, he's broke off some runs in games, and he just kind of has, and that's kind of like Kyren, right? Was able to do that. Like that was one of the things too. Like Kyren, his first game, I think he had like the 75-yard, caught the jailbreak screen or whatever.
Oh,
Right?
against Duke in 2020.
Against Duke. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Like,
His first
and
start.
that was,
Yeah.
and that was one of those things like people didn't know it was possible, but, and then, oh, well, he's going against a real defense this week against Clemson, whatever, 65 yards to the crib. Right. Like, so I'm not going to say that Aeneas or even Nolan James can't do that quite yet, because I want to see, but I definitely think like that having it, because they also aren't going to get it from any really things from the quarterback, some kind of explosiveness in the running game, I think it's going to be necessary. And if Walton is the one to provide it, I think that's definitely a thing.
One of the more fascinating parts of the season is how teams are defending Notre Dame and what that means for the running game, how much space is actually out there. There's going to be way more than there was last year, for sure, for the last 2 years, frankly. And so that how that materializes is going to be a kind of a huge storyline. I'm holding out hope. I put, he's on the thumbnail, Dallas Golden. Like, I know there's the back injury, and I'm a little bit leery of the fact that there hasn't been like any talk of him. I did know, because he had the back, right? And I don't, what's the status of that? Who knows? I did note just to myself that he was on one of the photos of the team in the new nutrition center, getting some food. I'm a believer in him as his talent. I loved him out of high school. Thought he was good last year. He's gonna make some strength gains. I know they're experimenting with a lot of people at nickel. I just have a feeling Golden is gonna separate himself, and we'll see, right? I mean, hopefully, I think the plan right now is for me to get out to fall practice and get to see the team. He's one. It's literally like I don't need to see him in pads. I don't need to see like how is he moving around? Like, where do they have him in the pecking order? That's going to be huge. Like, who's working at nickel and who, like, as fall camp starts, I know they're experimenting and all that stuff, but like as fall camp goes, like, okay, who is it going to be for real? That's what I want to see. I'm a big believer in Dallas Golden. I think he can be like a really like kind of a star in that nickel spot because he has so much skill sets. Who else on defense, Jamie, that you're thinking about?
Well, okay, I think Golden is also another guy too, where there's a whole bunch of guys I would say like in the secondary, especially at corner, when you think about Golden, Zachary, Mark Zachary, Jane Sanders, all played over 300 snaps as true freshmen.
Yeah.
So like they played a lot. Well, I would say if everybody's healthy, somebody's not going to play 300 snaps this year. It might be all of those guys not play 300 snaps this year, right? Like, I think that's a possibility. Doesn't mean those guys won't be better and kind of have like the Luke Talek kind of breakout where it's like, this guy played 200 snaps, but he was awesome during this time. And, he had to step in this one game and he was fantastic, right? Kind of like how when Zachary, as the season went along and you're like, the Arkansas game, you're like, Zachary he learned a lot from that Purdue game and then took it and then he was much better in the Arkansas game, and his trajectory was just kind of shooting up from there. So I think those guys are kind of in that category where even if Dallas Golden is not the starting nickel, he just might be a guy who just like, finds a way to, in whatever amount of snaps that he gets, and makes an impact, right? And we talked about last week about Manfermo, or on Tuesday about Manfermo, about him being that, because I don't think there's any real chance that he's going to be a starter at any point this year. Like, they're bringing back 4 guys with experience in front of him. And I do think he's clearly going to be better than he was last year. And it's just how much better. And could he rise up and be like the 3rd linebacker or something like that? And then he plays 250 snaps and is friggin' awesome. And then just becomes a guy that like, hey, we got to play him more and more as the season rolls along. Right. I think that's, someone to look out for. I would say, Matty Augustine, Obviously, he's still going to try to win like the right guard spot or whatever. But let's just say he's the sixth guy or the seventh guy, even if like Charles Juggersaw is somehow back and he's there, and they're like, well, he's ready to go, and he's this. Like, doesn't mean that Matty Augustine might not be of that caliber, and when he has to play, ends up being really, really good. And Ethan Long too makes so much sense. Is like, I think he's the fourth safety this year. Well, I would say likely because you're still like, Joey O'Brien and stuff too. But like Ethan Long to me just looks like if this was last year, you would have just been saying, well, him and Tay Johnson are pushing for that spot. And those guys are above Stroman and Talek. And that's to me how he looks. Like, I think he's just every time he's out there, you just notice him. You notice him. And somebody made a comment in the court about how like they saw the picture of them at the dining hall and they thought it was Kyle Hamilton because he's like, he has that kind of physique. He is a big kid. He is really, and I think about how Kyle Hamilton, by the way, shout out Kyle Hamilton, named the number one safety by all these executives in the NFL today for ESPN.com. Well deserved. Thriving as a nickel player. And I still have it in my mind that like Ethan Long might be somebody who just finds like some kind of role in a sub package kind of thing because he just might be too good to do it. So I'm excited, man. I just can't wait because I just think there's so many guys there that could be really, really good players. Like even like an Ebenezer Iwatade, who might just be someone that like, wow, he's just it's clear that he's just got too much talent. He's got to be in the rotation somehow.
People are noting in the chat, CJ Carr is on Rich Eisen right now. The Carr and Adon Schuler and I think Drake Bowen are in New York right now. Notre Dame always does this because they don't have media days. Oh, Leonard Moore is there as well. Notre Dame always does this because they don't have a media day for their, obviously as an independent. So they go to New York and they go to do a bunch of media and stuff to answer questions. I guess Lauren Landau, the strength coach, is kind of pushing the idea that, he trained UFC fighters and said the best fighters never left it to the judges. And that was something Notre Dame did last year, left it to the judges, and the judges didn't, they picked somebody else. So the idea is they're not going to let that happen this year. Kind of a similar refrain that we've been hearing for the last few months, which is obviously the right message, something they should be pushing. I want to get back to this Talek, Ethan Long situation for a second. There's a lot of discussion about Talek, like moving into like an off linebacker type of role because of, the idea is Notre Dame's losing Snead. They're going to lose Drake Bowen, could possibly lose KVA. And so, is Notre Dame going to go to the portal? Could Talek put on weight and move into that spot? It would be weird to me because they have him in that free safety position. They always have him in that kind of Tay Johnson type of spot. And again, I always note against Miami, Tay Johnson, when they had their dime package in, Talek was the deep safety and Tay was he played down. He played slot. Now, granted, he didn't play there again because he actually took Stroman's place back there. But I think that's notable to me that they like Tay down. And so could he be a candidate there? He did play corner as a freshman. They moved him to the boundary. I think just they were light there and they needed to get him reps, but they did move him there, and so I just think that he's a possibility. But of the two players between Talek and like Ethan Long, I kind of feel like Ethan Long might be a better fit for that position. Like you talked about Kyle and him having the same similar body type, him playing the nickel. If he's playing the nickel, it's more likely to me that he would kind of be more of like a Wusu Koromoa type, even though that doesn't really exist because he was a unicorn. But what do you think about that? Just that whole dynamic between Johnson, Talek, and Ethan Long.
Well, one, and I would even say too, because I'd throw Schuler in there because if you look at what like Schuler does, I mean, Schuler's obviously somebody who can come from depth, and like
For
you
sure.
see him run the alley and do a lot of stuff too. I haven't seen too many safeties like stacked up in the line of scrimmage and like really like be physical with a tight end the way that Schuler is. Um, and I mean, I have it embedded in my mind against Georgia in short yardage. Not the play where he went in and knifed in and got the TFL. That was obviously a great play. But there's another play where he is like literally having to take on like straight up.
Yeah.
He's lined like head up on the tight end and has to defeat the block. And he kicked the crap out of the tight end. Guy has like 50 pounds on him and he
Yeah.
owned him. Like that is rare. Like that is like you are a dude, you know, when you can do that kind of stuff. So I think it's funny because I think a lot they all kind of have some of that where they can do a bit of everything, right? Where they can play like tight and play in the slot and do some of this stuff a little bit better. There's some things that are obviously some guys are better at than others. Um, I don't know how like I think Talc makes so much sense as um like the dime and not the nickel, right? So he is the dime where he is can be a blitzer, can be someone who's like
Mm.
playing and um doing kind of a little bit like Kyle Hamilton in 2019 where
He
he's
was he
robbing.
played that robber all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Robin over the middle, right? Because he's obviously got ball skills and length and just whatever. You've seen him make plays on the football like that. I think that kind of makes sense for him. Um, and I think he is so matchup specific. If you're playing a team like now, you maybe don't have to worry about it as much, but like I think if they were going to play Boston College, I think that's a guy who would line up opposite Chudzinski on third downs.
Yeah.
They play man coverage on him a lot. I think you're going to play BYU. Walker Lyons is going to be a dude for them. That's a guy I see he's going to have to cover a lot in that game, right? So I think it's a little bit different because, and I also think like Ethan Long can do some of that too. So I would say that it's a weird thing to be like, man, Talc is so good in his role and doing that, and I think he's going to keep doing that. I don't see him being as people have kind of suggested it because people are moving on that I don't think he's ever going to be a linebacker, like a traditional linebacker. Sub package linebacker, sure, but not a traditional linebacker. But also too, that sub package linebacker in the NFL that's why people want him because that he has that kind of ability, right? So I think that's the way that I kind of see him, and I also kind of see Ethan Long very similarly in a lot of ways, but also too, I think Ethan Long probably can match up a little better with slots than Talent can. But Ethan Long is also big enough that he can handle tight ends and stuff too, which is why I think ultimately, like when we're talking about it, like his ceiling, long ceiling, is higher than Talent is because he's just a little bit more fluid and maybe not quite as big, but still really big. Like I think Ethan Long is going to end up being a really, really high draft pick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's there. I mean, he's shown it. Anytime you're making plays in games consistently as a young player, that trends very, very well. And then Notre Dame has done like they've proven they can develop the position, you know. And obviously, Aaron Henry throws a little bit of a X factor into that, but you know, it's still Notre Dame system, right? You would expect that they can continue to do that. I think Talek and Long and Johnson and that whole safety position, like they are. It's fascinating how I think Notre Dame's going to try to employ them. And people talk about Chris Ash, like, I mean, if I ever, if I get the chance to ask him a question, I'm going to ask him about the safeties specifically and just like the versatility that they bring to a defense because of their varied skill sets. You know, I mean, the skill sets that they have are kind of everything that a DC would want because size, length, speed. That's what defense is, you know. So it's going to be really interesting to to track. I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, hit that like, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know whenever we are going live. We'll be back next week talking more Notre Dame football. Fall practice right around the corner, so it's going to be a very exciting time. Very possible we get some Braden Parks news, wherever that comes in. So stay tuned to irsportsdaily.com. Have a good rest of your weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.